Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We are here, and once again, it is our great pleasure to be in your reality. As we were discussing earlier, the hidden design or designs of reality are revealing themselves, and or people are discovering many new truths. Truths that are very liberating, truths that are also very disturbing and discombobulating. Discombobulating because all people on the planet are up against a confrontation of what is really real. And it is not always easy to make a psychological, mental adjustment to drop old beliefs that have had millennia of investment in them, and to take on the new frontier. Yet this is what you are on the verge of, these paradigm-shattering discoveries. And we'd like to, this part, talk a little bit more about how many different directions these discoveries are coming from, what prognostications they will have for the year 2015. We usually talk about 2015 in December, but we'll give a little bit of a headline here in the month of November. And as George and we were saying earlier, mid-December you are going to have the Uranus-Pluto square. This, we believe, is number 6 or some such, and then this is going to be followed 3 months later, 3 moons later, by another. That's a lot of energy of confrontation and dismantling to have in a short amount of time, considering that you had the real USA shaking aspect occurred in April of 2014. So looking ahead, putting all politics aside, putting aside who represents what and who's right and what is important, putting all of that aside, we see that the next 4 months, 5 months from now till the end of April are going to rattle the world in ways that have not occurred before. Because the pressures that are beyond taking sides, the pressures, the forces of a higher nature are going to compel all of humankind to reconsider every aspect of life. And there are many, many, many people who know many things. The time will come when all of those pieces will start to be presented in a unified front. The internet, as problematic as it is and as infiltrated as it is a double-edged sword. It has served to help provide various pieces of the large puzzle to be offered to public domain. And as we have suggested, there are people who have professional achievements, and they stand to lose all of it because they are taking a stand, an unpopular stand, and they are saying, this is what it looks like is occurring. Forget what we believe. This is what it looks like. And there are more and more scientifics who have studied some of the data from satellites, from the rovers, from the various probes and explorers, well, they are not inclined to sell their soul for political correctness. And it's quickly creating a consensus where large groups of researchers have said that Earth has been colonized. And one lady said, who are the colonizers? General, when we speak of the colonizers, we are speaking of those who create empire. When you're talking about empire, you are undoubtedly on Earth talking about the Anunnaki, those who to Earth from heaven came. That does not preclude other visitors, of course, including we Pleiadians. But we as Pleiadians are not colonizers. We do not go in and set up a reality to conform to our desires for wealth and might and power. We are stimulators. We stir things up. We insert realities. We are educators. As Pleiadians, we are ancestors to the human race, in that we have been able to breed with you and to upgrade certain limitations within the human DNA. But larger than that, it appears from every walk of life that people are reporting, finally, strange occurrences that have happened throughout the last 50, 60 years. Some of it recent, some of it right after World War II. Some of these reportings include strange sightings, meetings with obvious visitors. Whether those visitors were Anunnaki or not is up for speculation. Many of the visitors that were considered to be not human but still appeared as human were considered to be what is named the tall blondes. That does not always mean they are bright blonde in appearance, but that is a category that they fulfill. Lighter complexion, lighter hair, tall of stature, and they appear to be exceptionally telepathic, able to do as some of your advanced animals can do, whether it is a ladybug or a lion. Some animals are completely and totally aware of their environment. Have you ever noticed that there may be a pesky bug around you, and you say, I've had it, I'm going to get the paper and swat that bug. As soon as you even think it, the bug takes off. Mm-hmm. Have you ever noticed that? And you can play games, like a cat attempting to bat a butterfly, a human attempting to swat some bug, and the bug knows it. And the bug then will play with you. Absolutely. And it will dive bomb you, and then it will disappear, and then you'll wait very quietly with that newspaper or magazine rolled up, or fly swatter or spray raid or whatever it is, and then it will sneak up on you and dive bomb and take off again. The bug's having fun. And yet you think the bug is being pesky. To the bug it looks like you're playing with it. A more effective way, truly, would be to say, bug, do you want me to play with you? I'll wave my hands around for a while, but after 3 minutes, just bug off, leave. The bug will usually leave. So there's this aspect of intelligence that is very, very, very important to consider. Now, when it comes to affecting your reality, we are talking about vast complexities and different agendas and different participations. Some of the speculation that is shocking scientists, really shocking them, is realizing that Mars probably was very much like the Earth at one time. And now it appears to be, in the reality that you view it, with a lot of desolation. George was speaking earlier about the red glow from the galactic center. Would you recapitulate that, George, just to remind everyone, and then we'll add something to it.
Okay. So, with the advent of different types of telescopes and then radio telescopes and things that could see outside the visible spectrum, they started looking, at the galactic center, and it was a bright red. It was an infrared. It's the brightest area of the sky.
And the Mayans understood that this galactic center was in actuality a dark hole, a black hole, many thousands, we believe, or even more, times the size of your sun. Your sun's quite large. And that it appeared that it was this rim that sort of sucked everything in. And when you have a black hole, there's also, let's say, remnants of radiation. Scientists also understood that the black hole was sending out signals along the entire electromagnetic spectrum, which would mean the slow end from radio waves all the way up to the high end of gamma rays. One could say that, is the hole sending out these signals, or is the hole a hole that where signals are broadcast through? It's not the hole so much, it's how the hole is being used and what function it provides. Now, this energy that can be seen with alternative types of telescopes that move beyond visible spectrum, they are picking up a type of radiation. Mars, too, appears to the naked eye at times to be red. And red sometimes is a signature of radiation. Scientists are concluding that there were perhaps wars on Mars because there are residual elements in specific areas around the planet, specifically the Cydonia area, where it appears that nuclear detonations have occurred. This is not unusual to be discovered because there have been many sites on Earth that have been revealed to have had nuclear detonations sometime in the remote past. The problem with presenting this to the world for discussion is that it refutes the official version. And the official version then is supported in all universities around the planet. Therefore, 2015 and 16 and 17, we'll see the massive disruption of higher education. Massively. This can be seen astrologically. How, George?
Well, the planet Saturn,
yes,
which usually puts pressures and makes things more real or more realistic.
Very good.
It is going into the sign of Sagittarius, which does rule higher education.
Very good. And it also rules religion. So as a prognostication, we are saying that stuff's going to hit it really big. 2014 is this turnaround, turning point year. The crossroads are very big. 2015, 16, 17 will be the fallout and the integration of what is being discovered now and what very brave and courageous people are willing to stand on and to say, I don't care if this makes no sense to any of you. From my point of view, I have established credentials in neurophysics, in whatever, far out field, radiophysiology. And we have been visited, and our solar system has been engaged in massive war, and it is probably still occurring today. These conclusions are coming from a purely non-military point of view. Once the military starts to come out and reveal these things, or insiders of a various nature, it's all going to... What's it all going to do?
Break the paradigms down.
Let's see a few separate ones. What's it all going to do? Break the paradigm, yes.
Religion's going to fall.
Religion will fall, and there are those who know this, and so they have a plan, of course, in the drawer to pull out a new way of looking at it. The problem is this. Saturn helps you achieve great maturity, and it's going into the sign of the bigger picture, Sagittarius. By 2017, only those with very, very locked down belief systems and very shut down DNA are going to believe the old stories. Coupled onto all of this, again, we have mentioned that there are codings within your genetic structure. And some of the occurrences on the planet are racing at a hectic rate to mess up the genetic code and to really, really create methodologies where people destroy themselves in a lifetime. And this is, again, the genetically engineered foods that are ubiquitous on the planet. Well, not quite ubiquitous. Let's take that back. Last count, it is the United States that provides the world with the majority of genetically engineered foods. And this is with the assistance of Monsanto. Russia, Mr. Putin, months ago, used his, let's say, aide, Mr. Medvedev, to announce to the world that Russia is large enough and autonomous enough to grow its own food. So it would not be importing foods, specifically genetically modified organisms, from any other country in the world. Europe has banned GMOs, matter of consideration. It appears that there are over 60 countries in the world who have banned GMOs. Where is the US on this?
Pushing it.
Mm-hmm. Pushing it, exactly. And where's the US on it? You are fighting this issue of labeling. Shall we label it? Well, people can't even read labels. And so the issue is not about labeling. The issue is about allowing. All the studies have shown that when you feed these GMOs to various animals, it's usually the rats who volunteer on some level for these experiments. It's their karma, so to speak. They are curious, and they like to get into toxic substances. If you think about historically where rats hang out. So, nonetheless, they are a noble kingdom, but they are usually the source of experimentation. And they get diseases very fast, they grow tumors, and they find that within the third generation, if you feed GMOs to one generation, by the third generation, guess what?
They can't reproduce.
They can't reproduce, they are sterile. So, in a larger scheme, this is a self-volunteer suicide that will wipe out generations within a very short amount of time. When you are in an adult body and you start eating GMOs, as many of you have over the last, let's say, 15 years, they only showed up in the late 90s, it has a different effect than it does on a developing body. On a developing body, it can be very dire. You will also notice that in the last 15 years or so, since these GMOs really came online, your instances of Alzheimer's and autism have risen off the charts. And let's say anyone in the medical profession who is really alert and sensitive to these extremes will say to you, we don't know what to do. We don't know what to do. We cannot provide enough assistance, caretakers, meals, one-on-one teaching to keep people clean and safe and healthy, because they are not interested in wiping themselves, in showering, or feeding themselves. When the numbers who participate in that experiment grow and grow and grow, you reach a tipping point. There are many who believe that you are already at this tipping point in terms of it's got its own momentum. And tipping point means, did you ever play the game when you were a kid? If you attempt to build a snowman too high, you don't regulate it, what happens? It falls over. If you attempt to build sand and plop wet sand on top of each other, and if it's not properly architecturally designed, it falls over. A tipping point basically means too much has been piled on too fast, and the structure or the ideology cannot sustain it, and it falls over. And there will be a fallout that no one is looking at. Ebola is a false reality. They're wanting you to get all worked up about Ebola so that you will clamor for vaccinations. Vaccinations are simply another way to get you to be a subject of the state, to be afraid, to believe that only your governments can save you, or only your medical systems can save you. These are core beliefs. When in actuality, the initiation into higher consciousness is flowering to unfold the idea of the power of the mind, power of all of the healing abilities and the substances available on earth, and how truly treasured the living library is, and why so many forces from so many places around existence come to visit Earth, some in awe, some in respect, and some to study, and some to steal and manipulate. It has been speculated by some of these cutting-edge thinkers that life ideally would be seen everywhere in the multiverse. Yet if so, why are you so quarantined? And is it that life is so fragile that there are only certain windows where environmental factors and factors of consciousness create windows where life can be sustained? And then is it part of consciousness development to reach a part of evolution and to create substances that they destroy themselves with? That's a pretty mind-expanding picture. These are things to think about because they are all pointing to an eminent discovery that you are really, really, really on the verge of things changing in ways you cannot imagine. People are afraid of CMEs or the economy crashing, or, as we were saying earlier, racial unrest or religious unrest. But it is more expansive ideas that tend to threaten society than anything else. Because once you break out of your old beliefs, anything becomes possible. And as we've been saying, there is this potential for a viral awakening to ripple through people in a matter of days. Days. That suddenly switches them on. It would have nothing to do with them wanting it or finding out about it. It would be a telepathic awakening. It would be a timing mechanism that would set off a thinking process, a realization process. It would be beyond the logical mind, Yet, if you understood the logic behind it, you could see, let's say, the so-called science in it. It would be a type of super science. It would be an indication that you are breaking out of the lockdown and that you are ready to claim your own autonomy. Remember this, just because groups of people wake up doesn't mean they're all going to wake up with the same ideas. But a wake up, a big wake up, and a big confrontation over hidden truths is going to be a theme for the year 2015. All right, let's now move further into some discussions that we were carrying on. Who would like to ask a question?
Can I ask the piece?
Yes.